Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome here to the European Parliament. Let me welcome those in the room as well as those following us online at this press conference taking place after the plenary vote on simplified sustainability reporting and due diligence rules for companies. I'm Martina Vaz. I'm following the work of the Legal Affairs Committee, and I have with me the rapporteur for this file, Mr. Jörgen Warborn, who will brief us about the outcome of the vote and the next steps in the procedure. First, a couple of organizational remarks. After the initial remarks by the rapporteur, we will have a Q&A session. We will take questions from the room and then online. Please always state your name and the name of the media you are representing. Interpretation is available in English, French, German, Italian and Swedish. And now let me pass the floor to the rapporteur, Mr. Jörgen Warborn.
Thank you, Martina, and good afternoon, everyone. I was elected first time 2019 to the European Parliament, and outside my office there is a poster saying, cut bureaucracy, create more jobs. Therefore, I think this is a very good day for me personally, but not least for European businesses and for good-paying jobs across Europe. Let me put it a bit into context. Europe has a huge growth problems. We are falling behind more or less all of the different big economies around the world. It's hard to compare exactly, but it's good to compare with the US because we developed our economy historically the same way, in the same time, basically. And they outperform us hugely at the moment. And they have been doing so for the past 15 years. And we have to fix this. And I think there are five major things that we have to do to fix this. First of all, our internal market. There are still things we can do with the internal market to facilitate trade within Europe. Second, energy. Our energy cost is too high in Europe, and we have to work on that so that our energy-intensive industries are getting more competitive. Then we have the international trade perspective, because if the rest of the world is growing more than Europe, then we have to find a way to tap into that growth. And we do that with our free trade agreements, and that's why the Mercosur agreement, the Mexico one, and all the ones that we are negotiating are so important to pass. Then, fourth, we have the capital market. Access to capital is still a problem for European businesses, and we need to fix that. And finally, and the reason we are here today, is simplification. We have been too bureaucratic, and we need to realize it, and we need to cut costs for businesses in order for us to come back to growth. When we started this process, I said that my ambition is to cut costs more than the Commission proposal did, and I think we have delivered on that now. I believe, I'm not too sure, but I believe that this is the legislative proposal, the single one that cut most cost in the European history, actually. It's, according to the staff working document of the Commission, 4.7 billion yearly for businesses. And with the changes the Parliament now has decided, it's even more. We don't know exactly, but it's even more. So in the ballpark of 5 billion euros yearly. On the content, what we voted today, I would say it's a very reasonable content. It's not too far either from the Commission than from the Council, even though, of course, there are differences. In scope, we are very similar to the Council position. We have increased the scope in CSRD. It's 1,750 employees, and they have 1,000 employees. When it comes to the civil liability issues, it's exactly the same as the Commission's proposal and as the Council also has adopted. When it comes to Article 8, which is how you do the due diligence process, we have a different model than the Council. So negotiations certainly have to be done on Article 8. And finally, on the climate transition plans, the language is not touched at all when it comes to CSRD, but we have a deletion of the climate transition plans in CSDDD. There are currently, I think, seven legislations that calls for a climate transition plans. We didn't think it was necessary to have an eighth one. And since there is still a language on climate transition plans in the CSRD, I think it was the wise thing to cut costs for businesses in CSDDD and not include a ninth climate transition plans. When I met a business last week, they said, well, it cost us money to do those climate transition plans. We would like to take those money from producing the climate transition plans and put it into research and development so that we can sell products and solutions that actually cut emissions for Europe globally. On the votes, you have probably seen the votes. It was 382 pluses, 249 minuses, and 13 abstentions. So a very solid outcome of today's vote. EPP were almost united. We had, I think, one member not voting for and one abstention. I'm really happy that also Renew, a large part of Renew, I think around 25% of the Renew colleagues supported at the end, and 12 or 13%, something like that, for S&D. So a very strong mandate from the Parliament. And let me finish off with the next step, because the next step, of course, is the trialogues. We will start already on Tuesday, and I myself and my team, we are prepared to work 24/7 in order to finalise this by the end of the year. This is important of two reasons. First of all, we have the stop the clock process, and we need to finalise it before the end of the year in order to keep our timeline. But most importantly, we have to give companies the predictability that they urgently need on what rules will need to be there. So with that, I hand over to you and to the Q&A.
Thank you, Rapporteur. And we have a couple of questions in the room. Yes.
Thank you, Magnus with Directive, and thank you, Tack Warborn. So, leading up to today, you've said that you are merely proposing EPP amendments, and whatever groups would happen to be supporting said amendments would be welcome to do so. You now mentioned Renew S&D, obviously, but the main groups getting this over the line was thanks to support from the Patriots and ECR and ESN even. I just wanted to give you maybe the opportunity now whether you want to extend a thank you to these groups helping pass this legislation, helping pass your position on this. Thank you.
Yes, thank you to all colleagues that supported this report. It was important. We, of course, did not manage to pass it through in Strasbourg when we voted last time. So, indeed, it was important that colleagues supported it this time. So, yes, a thank you to all colleagues that voted for.
Next question, Max. Yeah, sorry.
Here. Yeah, thank you. Léa Marchal from Agence Europe. On the CSDDD text, I think there are no more penalties for companies who don't respect their due diligence obligations. It has been removed, and also the civil liability, which doesn't leave much incentives for companies to comply. So how do you think the CSDDD, in the form you have agreed today, still protects victims? And another political question here. What is the future of the pro-European platform, the von der Leyen majority? Do you think that the vote today is an exceptional case or not? Thank you.
So the civil liability, it's still there. what is changed is not a EU-wide CU liability. So there is still a civil liability. When it comes to penalties, they are also still there, but we changed the language. So there was a 5% figure on turnover, and that is removed now. So it says something in the line of appropriate levels or something, and it's up to the member states to decide. So there are still, of course, pressure on the companies to adhere to this piece of legislation. And that's important, of course. But it's also, I think we have a mindset issue here that we have to work with as well. If we are going to solve the climate issue and sustainability issues in general, we have to see the companies as our friends. We have to work more with a carrot than with a stick. It's through them that we actually can reduce the emissions. So if we push them too hard and scare them in a way, and I've heard colleagues using that language that we should scare them into how do you say, following our very harsh laws, what will happen then is that they will say, okay, Europe doesn't seem to be the place to invest. We go elsewhere. And then we lose the jobs, and then we lose the good-paying wages, and then we lose the taxpayers' money, and then we lose the possibility to invest in defence, infrastructure, or other issues that we need to have, not least to solve the climate issues. So I think this balance and see companies as our friends is the most important part, actually, to solve the sustainability issue. On the more general questions on where we are with the platform, I tried to have a deal with the platform in Strasbourg last time. It didn't work out. There were votes missing, and therefore it fell. Will this be exceptional? I'd like to remind you that this week we have discussed the MFF together with our platform and the Greens. We have voted 2040 rules, the climate rules on 2040, together with the platform. So I'd like to collaborate a lot with the platform parties in the future as well. But when you cannot find a majority, you have to find a majority, and we are in a situation where we need to facilitate for businesses to doing business. And that is what happened today. Nothing more, nothing less. We are now in a position that we simplified for businesses, given the fact that we managed the trialogues, and that is the most important part of the message today.
Yes.
Hi. Sorry, Max Griera for Politico. 2 questions. You say that you were ready to negotiate with the platform. However, at the same time, Renew, S&D and Greens affirm that you did not meet with them together at the same time. You didn't want to sit at the table with the rest of the platform, with the other shadows at the same time. Why is that the case? Maybe you could have found an agreement by sitting down with them in the same room and maybe hammering out a final text. So that would be one question. And the other question would be, so if I read what you're saying correctly, basically what you're saying is that EPP, of course, should try with the center, but that if it fails, you have a right-wing majority that you should use in order to deliver on your goals. Is that the message? Thank you.
So the situation that was created last time, it was a secret vote, so we cannot know for sure, but we know that there were 31 S&D colleagues that individually challenged the committee mandate, together with the Greens, the left, and PFE and ESN. And therefore it fell. And we had a deal with the S&D, and it failed because S&D couldn't deliver all their votes that they needed in order to us to have a majority. So after that, of course, I've had a lot of discussions and talks with the other shadows. But my message has been S&D put us in this situation, and now S&D have to sort it out. when I had discussions with S&D, with Renew, with the Greens, I didn't find a credible way of how we could find a majority. And that's why I put forward EPP amendments, 100% EPP amendments, the amendments that I put on the table on one of the shadow meetings, and that's what voted through today. Your second question was remind me of the second question.
Yeah, so with what you were saying before, it seems the message is, of course, the VP needs to try with the center, but if that fails, you need to go with the right to deliver on your goals. Is that the message out of this omnibus vote? Thank you.
So, we of course have the cordon sanitaire. So what happens in this time is that we put forward EPP amendments only, and they were supported by the right-wing parties, together with some colleagues in Renew and with some colleagues in S&D and unanimously almost with EPP. Is that going to happen in the future? I don't know. It depends on how the group, of course, the flexibilities of the groups in our discussions. It has already happened in some files before in the Parliament. In this case, it was very important to come to a conclusion since we have the stop the clock and since we have a growth problem in Europe.
Thank you. Yes, question in the back. Yes.
Yes, Giovanni Del Re for the Times Paper Avvenire. I have just a very basic political question. Does it make sense for you to keep speaking about firewall against the extreme right, given what you are saying that the majority needs to be funded? I mean, is it still sensible, or do you think that such a concept is now become obsolete? Thank you.
So, once again, I put EPP amendments on the table. There was no negotiations with the other groups, and the negotiation is the cordon sanitaire, right? So, yes, I think it makes sense at this moment. But we have to find majorities in the Parliament. That's what we do. It is complicated with how the voters decided. The voters, of course, is always right. And now we work with the Parliament that we have. And when it comes to competitiveness, we created a good outcome for European citizens and businesses today.
Thank you. Next question. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you, Laura. Merci for context. After the vote from last time in plenary, Renew, S&D and the Greens made an offer to EPP for a new compromise with a threshold, I think, around 4,000 for due diligence and some more amendments on the transition plans and civil liability that were going more in your direction than even the mandate from the URI committee. Why was it not possible for you to accept that offer? Thank you.
No, I don't perceive that it went into the. It was rather the opposite. It went in a different direction than the URI mandate. And at the end of the day, we have to find a majority, and that means that EPP also have to be on board. Of course, I have to count all my 188 members in EPP. Yes, they managed to have a compromise that they could agree upon in our negotiations. I noticed that they didn't put forward common amendments at the end, so they had individual amendments at the end, which we had in EPP as well. So that was the situation. Climate transition plan was a major thing for us. As you might recall, they were not included in my draft report. I managed to have my group accepting them for the Strasbourg vote, but when that fell, it of course changed the mood in EPP as well, and then we had to find a new majority. It wasn't possible with the platform parties.
Thank you. Next question. Yes, please, at the back.
Yes, thank you.
Eleonora from MLEX. My question is, since you mentioned investors, one of the main criticisms of this simplification is that it would restrict access to reliable, comparable data, and some of this criticism also came from the European Central Bank. So is it true that it's actually helping investors make an informed decision if we're restricting the access to this data?
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate questions on content. That's very good. No, I don't think we have a big problem there. I've heard some concerns, but we also have the concerns on the other side that it is too complicated, too bureaucratic, and it costs too much money to produce the reports. And that's why we try to find the right balance here. I think it is good because, as you know, there is work. EFRAG is working on the standards and basically cutting down the data points that will be reported on. And I'm really glad that it will be a focus on quantitative data. Today there is a lot of qualitative, an obligation for qualitative data. And of course, as you said in your question, it's not always that the qualitative data is comparable. With numbers, it's easier. Then you can compare the numbers. So I think that is a very good shift, and that the data point comes down. That is a very good shift as well. At the end of the day, if there is a company that feels that they need to deliver this data in order to attract investors, then they are absolutely free to provide all the information to the investors that they would like to do. But what we, of course, is doing is that we are setting the obligation by law that you need to deliver. And that's why I think it is important to not be too bureaucratic, not ask for data that it's not necessary to have. And that's what we have accomplished today. And I hope that EFRAG will continue to accomplish with their jobs.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more questions. One will be online. Yes, please.
Hi, thank you. Philip Bedosuvin with the Norwegian media Energi og Klima. There are some who have pointed towards there being a Brussels effect, which is in essence that through its regulations, the EU has been able to impose its values and use power on the global stage. Do you think you're tearing down the Brussels effect, and what should be the basis of power for the European Union in the future if it is not to be as bureaucratic?
Well, I like that question. It's a bit philosophical as well. I'm not really sure that the Brussels effects have worked in our advantage all the time. I'm also very sure that we have had a lot of criticism from third countries on some of our legislations, of course. Normally I do international trade as coordinator in INTA, and when I meet our partners in the rest of the world, they think that we are pushing our agenda on them too much. And that complicates our negotiations with them in trade aspects as well. And as I said when I started, these trade agreements are really important because we need now, when our growth is going down, we need to tap into the growth that is happening elsewhere. Therefore, those trade agreements are so important, not least when it gets more and more complicated to do business with the US. Then we need to do business with the rest of the world, and we need those free trade agreements. So, in short, Brussels effect, not too sure that it has worked, and that is always in our advantage. The main message I have, we have to come back to competitiveness. There is a number of things we need to do. Today we delivered partially on one of them. I hope that the Commission will come back with more omnibuses that cut costs for businesses even more.
Thank you. And the last question online by Matt. Matt, are you there? Can you press your speak button? Yes.
Hi, thanks for taking the question. Matt Hoish with Platts. I was wondering if you could comment on the effect of comments from major oil and gas producers in Qatar and the U.S., threats essentially that they would pull business from Europe if these regulations weren't changed, specifically the part of the regulation around the 5% penalty if they were in violation. To what extent were those pretty direct and public threats influences on the outcome of this vote?
Well, thank you for that question. I think it's really important to say that in the European Union, we take our own decisions on our democratic values. We will listen to businesses, to NGOs, to unions, to all the different stakeholders, and then we, of course, balance this to see what is most important to deliver for citizens in Europe. And I think we have done that in this case. On the penalties, I think I answered that before. It's not totally deleted that there will be no penalties at all. Of course there will be. But this is now up to the member states to put the appropriate number on these penalties. So we are a democratic union, taking our decisions democratically, and I think with the vote both we had in Strasbourg and the vote today, it is a truly democratic parliament, and today we delivered a majority, a stable majority for the citizens and businesses of Europe.
Thank you very much, dear Rapporteur. Thank you very much to all of you for being present here in the room as well as online, and I wish you all a very nice afternoon. Thank you, Rapporteur.